Hi there. Thank you for choosing to be here tonight. Welcome to another gentle moment with Sleepy Zen. I know that sometimes we just need a soft place where the mind can breathe again. And right now, you can let this space become your own safe corner. A place where you don't have to try, don't have to be strong, and don't have to hold yourself in any particular state. You can let go just a little. Slow down one beat and let your body understand that you are safe and wrapped in calm. Here you are listened to. Here you are trusted. And here you are allowed to rest. Before we begin tonight's story, let me ask gently, where is your heart at right now? A little tired? Feeling okay? Or needing a bit more soothing? If you want, you can share it so I can understand you better. Elliot sat alone in the small room he used for work each afternoon, the late day sunlight pouring through the window and spreading a thin golden layer across the wooden desk, making everything look softer, slower, as if the light itself were inviting him to breathe again. In front of him was a clear glass of water. He had set it down a long while ago, yet his hand was still wrapped around it as if he had forgotten he was holding it. The glass wasn't heavy, but his wrist had begun to ache. Elliot didn't understand why he kept holding on, just as he didn't fully understand why he had held so many unspoken things inside himself for so long. Every time he thought he could let go, another part of him insisted he should keep holding on, holding to be safe, holding to stay in control, holding so he wouldn't make mistakes. But the longer he held, the more obvious the weight became, not just in his hand, but in his chest. The golden light shifted slightly, softening as if filtered through a thin layer of air. In that gentle glow, Elliot noticed the beads of condensation gathered along the glass, the way the droplets clung together and then slowly separated, slipping down the surface in silence. He realized he was staring at the glass as if it were teaching him something he had been avoiding. A small glass like this, yet holding it for just a few more minutes was enough to numb his wrist. What about the things he had carried for years? The worries, the expectations, the unsaid words, the constant effort to be right enough, perfect. How heavy had they become? He set the glass down on the table and felt the pressure disappear immediately. His hand relaxed, his shoulder loosened, almost as if he had placed something far heavier than a glass onto the wood. He looked at the table again, at the glass casting a long, thin shadow in the fading light. A thought drifted through him. Maybe pain doesn't come from holding something heavy, but from holding it for too long. He didn't hurry to draw any conclusions. He simply inhaled slowly and let the breath leave on its own, without force, without correction. The glass remained still on the wooden surface, and for the first time in weeks, Elliot felt he too could be still inside himself. No resisting, no tightening, just setting down one small corner of his burden into the soft retreating glow of the evening. Elliot stayed still for a while longer, letting his body relearn what it felt like to not hold anything at all. The moment his hand left the glass, a small emptiness appeared. Light, unfamiliar, as though his body wasn't used to being relaxed. The golden afternoon on the wooden table grew thinner, shifting into the deeper tones of late day, and the glass looked like a clear vessel holding the last bit of fading light. Elliot brought his hand to his wrist and rubbed gently, feeling the dull ache that remained, the quiet imprint of having held on too long. He let out a soft, amused exhale at the simple truth he had ignored. No one had asked him to keep holding the glass. No one stood behind him, telling him to grip it for a few more minutes. He couldn't even remember why he had picked it up in the first place. But his hand kept holding. His body kept tensing. Habit born from a person who hesitates to let go of anything. He looked at the glass again, noticing how the final rays of sunlight reflected off the rim, forming a small halo of light. It hit him then that he hadn't just been holding the glass. He had been holding the belief that he must hold it, must be responsible, must keep it steady, must avoid mistakes, must not make a mess, must not be wrong. One invisible word must heavier than the glass he had just put down. A breeze moved the curtain by the window, shifting the light across the table, and something inside Elliot softened just a little, almost too subtle to notice, but present all the same. He reached out instinctively to touch the glass again, then stopped, not out of fear of the weight, but because he wanted to experience a bit more of what not holding felt like. It made him realize that peace doesn't only come from putting down big burdens. Sometimes it comes from seeing how long you've been carrying something, simply because you forgot you could let it go. Elliot leaned back in his chair, letting it support him fully. He breathed slowly, and with each inhale and exhale, he felt his body loosening its old habit of tightening around everything. The glass remained where it was, full of water, steady, asking nothing from him. It didn't need him to hold it all day to remain what it was. And maybe the things he had been carrying all this time didn't need that from him either. As the last light withdrew from the table, leaving the glass in a gentle dimness, Elliot understood he had just released something small, yet enough to open the first door out of the expectations he had placed on himself. And sometimes a door only needs to open a sliver for the light to finally come in. The last of the afternoon light slipped out of the room, leaving a faint strip of brightness stretched across the wooden table. In that thin, fading glow, the glass of water looked completely different from when Elliot had been holding it. Lighter, calmer, almost as if it too was relieved to finally be set down. He leaned back softly in his chair, his eyes still resting on the glass as though watching something that mirrored a quiet truth inside him. The glass hadn't changed, but something in him clearly had. What had exhausted him all this time wasn't the glass itself, but the belief that he had to keep holding everything. It was the same with so many parts of his life. The responsibilities he never dared to share. The feelings he swallowed instead of speaking. The apologies he never found the courage to say. The expectations he kept pressing against his own chest. All of them were just like the glass. Light for a moment, draining when held for too long. Elliot placed his hand on the table, where the wood still held a trace of warmth from the sunlight earlier. That warmth would fade with nightfall, but for now it felt like a small, gentle transition. An echo of something shifting inside him into a lighter place. He thought about the days he tried to live flawlessly, tried not to disappoint anyone, tried to become the best version of himself by holding everything tighter. Every time he felt not enough, he added another weight to his chest. The way he had held the glass longer out of fear someone might think he was careless. But here, in this quiet room, with the glass sitting peacefully on the table, he realized no one was watching. No one was judging. No one was asking him to hold anything longer than he wanted to. The only one asking that of him was himself. A deep breath entered his chest and left slowly, like a soft breeze passing through the open window. He looked at the glass and understood that letting go wasn't abandonment, and it wasn't avoidance. Letting go simply meant putting down what no longer needed to be carried. Sometimes setting down a single glass is only the beginning of setting down all the heavier things. Elliot stood to turn on the light, but before touching the switch, he looked at the glass one more time. It rested quietly on the wooden surface as the room darkened around it. Simple, steady, exactly where it belonged. The way everything becomes lighter the moment we stop insisting on holding it in our hands. He smiled, small but genuine. He knew he hadn't let go of everything yet, but he also knew something far more important. He had begun. In a quiet forest, if you look long enough at a single sunlit leaf, you'll notice tiny droplets of sap left by insects catching the light like little jewels. From a distance, they look sweet, harmless, almost lovely. But the moment you touch them, you feel their stickiness. A light grip, yet enough to take away the easy freedom of your fingers. Strangely, it's the sweetness that makes you want to keep it, even though the stickiness quietly holds you back. The mind works in the same way. There are things we cling to because they offer a soft comfort at first. A compliment, recognition, the idea of being perfect, the image of who we think we should become. They seem sweet, uplifting, even motivating. but the longer we hold them, the more we stick to them. And that very stickiness becomes the weight we feel. Just as the sap does make the leaf more beautiful, it simply keeps the leaf from moving freely in the wind. This mechanism of the mind is delicate and subtle. When we cling to something, even something positive, the mind loses some of its space to breathe. It starts comparing, guarding, tightening, fearing loss. The initial sweetness slowly turns into pressure we never noticed forming. The way sap begins to gather dust and makes the leaf heavier. What we thought would help us ends up limiting us. But the beautiful truth is this: the leaf doesn't have to fight to be free. It only needs the droplet to fall away or to dry on its own. In the same way, the mind doesn't need to wrestle with the things it clings to. It only needs to notice the stickiness, gently, without blame, and give it room to release itself. Peace has always been there, just beneath the thin layer of things we think matter most. And when sunlight shines on the leaf, it becomes clear again. Freedom doesn't come from adding more to ourselves, but from letting go of what has quietly attached itself to us. If you watch a leaf for a little longer, you'll notice that once the sap clings to it, the wind can no longer move it as easily as before. What was once a soft, natural motion becomes hesitant and heavy, missing the freedom it used to have. The leaf never wanted this, never chose to hold on to the sap. But the stickiness makes it carry a weight it did not create. The human mind carries similar burdens, and what's remarkable is that most of them come from things we believe will make us better. We cling to perfect goals, to ideal versions of ourselves, to praise that feels like proof of our worth. In the beginning, holding these things feels pleasant. We feel important, guided, motivated. But as the attachment lingers, fear grows whenever we fail to meet the standard we set. What once felt sweet becomes a source of pressure. We grow tired not because of what happens during the day, but because of the weight of constantly holding on to what we think will help us. And just like the sap on the leaf, the mind doesn't need force or harsh effort to become free. Struggling against the stickiness only makes it cling more tightly. Letting go isn't about fighting the attachment. It's about recognizing that we are attached. The moment we notice it, the stickiness begins to soften. The mind gains space to breathe, to step back, to sense that its true nature has never been defined by what clings to it. Sunlight passing through forest leaves doesn't try to make the leaf more beautiful. It simply shines gently, allowing us to see the leaf clearly, whether the sap is there or not. The quiet clarity inside us works the same way. It doesn't force us to release anything, doesn't push us to let go. It simply shows us that we are holding something longer than we need to. And sometimes, with just that bit of awareness, the sticky layer falls away on its own. Light as sap dissolving in the warmth of midday. In that simple seeing, we understand that the burden doesn't come from what is happening, but from the way we hold on to it. Mara walked along a narrow forest path where sunlight slipped through the canopy in scattered gentle patches. The ground beneath her feet was soft and slightly damp, holding the shape of each footprint as if acknowledging every step she took. She had come here because she was exhausted with herself, with goals she set and never felt satisfied with efforts that never seemed enough, with a constant push to become perfect in the image she held in her mind. Mara always believed she had to search for something out there, a new skill, a bigger achievement, a better version of who she was. But the farther she went, the more it felt like she was pushing on a door that never opened. The path led her to a wider clearing, where deep buffalo footprints pressed into the soil. They were round, full, unmistakably steady, so clear that Mara could tell the animal had walked through slowly, grounded without rush. Maybe it had passed by earlier that morning, yet its tracks remained quiet, reminders carved into the earth. Mara knelt and touched one of the prints. The soil was cool, and the sensation spread into her fingertips, slowing her breath without warning. She didn't know why she paused here, but there was something in the fullness of the footprint that softened her chest by a beat. It stood in total contrast to the urgency she carried inside, the pressure to move faster, to keep up with a standard she herself could never define. A few steps later, she reached a stretch of grass, an open green field, so calm and level that she couldn't hear a single hurried sound. Everything was slow, too slow compared to the racing pace of her thoughts, and that stillness made her stop completely. Mara looked around for more signs of the buffalo, but there was nothing except the fading prints wandering into the field, as if the animal had come here, rested in the quiet, and moved on again with unforced ease. In that moment, Mara realized something she had never considered. Maybe peace wasn't about becoming something else. Maybe it was about remembering what was already inside her. Something steady, slow, and quietly enough. Like the buffalo whose prints carried no urgency. Not perfect, not performing, not trying to become anything more. Simply itself. Mara stayed still at the edge of the clearing, letting her gaze drift across the patches of soft green resting under the gentle light that filtered through the canopy. The breeze moved just lightly enough to stir the grass, but not enough to make a single rustling sound. The quiet made her feel as if this place had been waiting for her, not calling her, not urging her, just existing, the way stillness often waits beneath the days she spends chasing perfection. She followed the buffalo tracks further. They were deep at the edge of the clearing, then faded as they moved inward, as though the animal had found the place it needed, rested a while, and then continued on at whatever pace felt natural. Mara wondered if peace worked the same way, that it wasn't at the end of a long pursuit, not hidden inside achievement or perfection, but waiting in the places where she allowed herself to stop, where she let herself breathe without fixing anything. She sat at the edge of the grass, feeling the softness of the earth beneath her palms. From here, the tracks no longer formed a neat path. They scattered in different directions. Some sunk deeply into the soil. Others were barely indented, but all of them held the same quiet steadiness, free of rush. It struck her that in recent days she had walked without ever noticing her own footsteps. She had always looked ahead, searching for what she needed to do next, who she needed to become, what version of herself she had to match. She had never paused to see how far she had already come, or that she didn't lack anything to start feeling enough. She ran her hands through the grass, brushing the small blades and feeling their coolness spread across her palms. A quiet thought rose, her own inner peace, the thing she believed she had to earn through effort, had always been here, like this open field, never asking her to prove anything. The buffalo didn't leave perfect tracks. They were simply tracks. So why was she demanding perfection from every step she took? Mara lay back on the grass, looking up at the canopy woven into shifting patterns of light and shadow. Somehow her breathing slowed, not because she tried to slow it, but because the place itself was so calm, so enough. It was as if even her constant searching had grown tired and finally allowed itself to rest. And in that rest, Mara realized that returning to her true nature wasn't a journey of taking more steps, but a journey of letting go of the unnecessary ones. Lying there in the grass, Mara felt the earth holding her in a way she couldn't remember feeling for a long time. There were no rushing thoughts, no lists of things she had to accomplish, no ideals she had to meet in order to feel worthy. Just the sky flickering through the leaves and her own breath steady and soft, as if this place was reminding her that things had always been this simple. When she sat up, her eyes found the buffalo tracks again, leading into the clearing and fading gently into the softer soil. They didn't lead to anything miraculous, nor did they point toward a right direction. They simply showed a path walked with steadiness and without hurry. She didn't know where the buffalo had gone, or if it would ever return. But what softened her chest was the feeling that it carried no worry in any of its steps. It walked when walking, rested when tired, ate when hungry, lay down when weary. It wasn't searching for perfection. It was simply itself. Mara followed a few of the deeper tracks, moving slowly, almost as if relearning how to walk. She realized she didn't want to run anymore. She didn't want to chase an image in her mind. The idea of perfection she had chased for so long felt thinner now, like mist fading under morning light. Not because it was wrong, but because she could finally see that beneath all that striving, her inner peace had never left. It had only been hidden under expectations she thought would make her better. Standing in the center of the open field, she took a deep breath and felt something she hadn't felt in a very long time. A quiet sense of wholeness, not because she had achieved anything, not because she was praised, not because she did everything right, but simply because she was here in this moment, losing nothing, missing nothing. The buffalo tracks grew faint as she walked farther, but their meaning stayed with her. Some journeys don't lead to a destination at all. They lead us back to ourselves. Mara turned and looked at the field one more time, letting her eyes rest on the gentle green. She knew she would leave and that there would be days she forgot this peace. But she also knew that, like this, clearing her true nature would always wait. Without judgment, without urgency, without demanding she become someone else. Always ready to open again the moment she was willing to stop. When a bowl falls to the ground, the sound of it breaking rings out quickly, then disappears almost right away. The pieces lie scattered, and the light catching along each crack makes them look like small bits of glass, holding on to the last warmth of the day. No one wants a bowl to break, but once it has, the earth accepts it without resistance. The ground doesn't hurt. The ground doesn't try to keep the bowl whole. It simply opens itself and lets the pieces rest there quiet, as if everything has finished its task. Impermanence moves in this simple way. There are things in our lives we once held so carefully, things we were afraid to lose, things we thought could never be replaced. And yet, at some point, they slip from our hands. Not to punish us, not to prove anything, but simply because that is the natural way of all things. What truly hurts us is not the breaking itself, but the moment we cling to the old shape of the bowl, wishing it could be just as it was before. When we loosen that need, we begin to see the calm of the earth. It doesn't try to glue the pieces back together, and it doesn't try to erase the fact that they broke. It allows everything to be exactly what it is. Cracked, silent, and then touched by light. Sometimes the light is even more beautiful passing through a fracture than across a perfect surface. And just like the bowl, our lives have moments that are not complete. Things that have broken in ways we cannot undo. But impermanence carries a kind of gentleness we often overlook. When the Old falls away, space opens for something new to arrive. When one form ends, room appears. And when we stop bracing ourselves against what is already over, we become like the earth. Wide, soft, and peaceful enough to let the light come through in its own way. Letting go is not throwing something away. It is understanding that everything has a time to fulfill its role. The broken bowl can no longer be used as before. But the moment the light slips through its cracks, holds a kind of beauty that only appears when we accept that it has changed. In that acceptance, the heart grows lighter, as if the weight it carried for so long only needed a single clear look to finally fall on its own. Liam stood beneath the wide canopy of a great tree behind the meditation hall, where the early morning light was still dim and the breeze moved so gently it felt like it was trying to wake each leaf one by one. The tree was so tall that when he looked up, all he could see was a broad green ceiling, layers of leaves stacked over each other like a natural roof. At his feet, the roots rose slightly above the earth, twisted and strong, like the thick veins of a body that had grown through many seasons. He had come here for a reason he couldn't easily put into words, a deep disappointment with himself. He tried hard in every lesson, tried to do better each day, tried to live up to what his teacher expected, tried to become the right version of himself he imagined others wanted to see. But the more he tried, the more he felt like he was standing still. Master Rowan approached from behind, his steps making only the softest sound against the ground. He stopped beside the largest root, his eyes drifting up toward the high branches, as if he already understood why Liam was there before the boy could say anything. "This tree," he said, his voice low and unhurried. "Do you know why it has grown this big?" Liam shook his head. Rowan placed his hand on the thickest root. "Because it doesn't try to grow." Liam frowned, confused. Rowan went on, his voice blending with the morning wind passing through the leaves. "It doesn't force itself to grow taller quickly. It doesn't worry that it isn't enough. It doesn't blame itself when today looks the same as yesterday. It simply takes in light when there is light, drinks water when it rains, and stands still when the wind blows. It grows because it allows itself to grow." Liam looked down at the roots by his feet. Something in their strong, grounded shape made his heart soften and sink in a gentle way. Rowan watched him for a moment, then said, "You expect too much from yourself, Liam. You want to grow up faster, to see results sooner, to become a better person just because you think you're supposed to." Liam bit his lip, a small wave of shame rising in him, but also a strange relief because someone had finally spoken out loud what he hadn't been able to express. But Rowan continued, "Just as you can't pull on this tree to make it taller, you can't pull on yourself to to grow faster than your own natural pace. The morning breeze circled once around them, slipping through Liam's hair, cool and soft. He stood there, silent, letting the words sink in. The way water slowly seeps into the soil around the roots of an old patient tree. Liam sat down beside the tree's wide roots, feeling their rough texture under his palm. They weren't smooth, not perfect, but they were solid in a way that made him feel small in the gentlest sense. Master Rowan lowered himself beside him, leaving just enough space so Liam wouldn't feel crowded. Just like the way he always gave his students room to breathe. "When you came here," Rowan said, "your mind was hard like soil before the rain. It couldn't absorb anything. It couldn't soften, because you were forcing yourself to change all at once." Liam lowered his head, his fingers tracing the cracks along the roots without thinking. "But I just want to be better," he whispered. Rowan smiled, a soft morning light kind of smile. Being better doesn't come from forcing. It comes when you give yourself time to take things in. Look at these roots. They don't rush to find their path. They just keep moving deeper into the earth, a little at a time. And one day they're strong enough to hold an entire tree through years of wind. Liam looked up at the tall trunk rising toward the sky. Nothing about it showed urgency. It had grown over seasons, not deadlines, following no expectation except the natural rhythm of its own becoming. In that moment, Liam felt the difference between growing and pushing himself. "I keep thinking I'm not doing enough," he said, his voice catching even though he hadn't meant to reveal that much. "Every day, I want to move faster." Rowan shook his head slowly. "That's not the issue, Liam. It's not that you're not moving fast enough. It's that you don't see you're moving at all. When you only look at what you haven't reached, you forget what you've already walked through." A morning breeze passed again, stronger this time. The leaves overhead trembled with a soft rustling sound, as if answering Rowan's words. Liam looked up at them. They didn't resist the wind, nor did they let it carry them away. They simply moved with it, then settled back when it faded. Not trying, not resisting, not trying to be still or to sway beautifully. They were just part of the tree, and the tree welcomed every motion. Rowan watched the quiet shift in Liam's face and gently placed a hand on his shoulder. "You don't need to try to become a great tree," he said. "You only need to allow yourself to grow." The words landed lightly, but they went deep, like the morning wind sinking through cloth. Liam didn't answer, but his breath lengthened, softened, like someone who had finally allowed himself to start absorbing what had been running past for a long time. Another early breeze moved through, longer and cooler this time, making the whole canopy tremble as if the entire forest were breathing in one shared rhythm. Liam looked up at the shifting leaves, and in their movement he noticed a softness he had never paid attention to before. Not a single leaf tried to hold itself still, yet none of them tried to sway harder to prove anything. They simply let the wind pass through, let the movement happen. then returned to their natural state. Rowan stood and brushed a bit of dust from his robe. "Do you see this tree trying to grow right now?" he asked. Liam shook his head. "And yet every year it grows," Rowan said, his voice blending with the pale morning light. "Not because it forces itself, but because it doesn't block its own growing." Liam stayed seated, letting those words spread through him like a small crack in the soil, opening just enough for water to sink deeper. He realized that all this time, he had treated growth as a competition. Be faster, be better, make fewer mistakes. Every time he fell short, he blamed himself, tightened himself, shrank inside the weight of thinking he wasn't enough. But looking at the tree standing steady in the morning breeze, he understood. Nothing in nature matures by pressure. Everything grows simply because it's allowed to. Rowan stepped closer to the trunk and placed his hand on its rough bark. "When you force yourself to change," he said, "your mind becomes like dry ground. Water poured onto it can't sink in. But when you release your expectations, you become soft." Liam rose and joined his teacher, placing his hand on the trunk as Rowan had done. The bark felt coarse yet alive, carrying a quiet strength into his palm. He didn't feel like he needed to understand everything right away. He didn't feel like he had to change immediately. Standing there, just with his breath, with the breeze, with the tree, was enough. Enough for him to recognize something essential. His inner peace had never disappeared. It had only been covered by the expectations he kept placing on himself. A long silence settled between them, light as the early wind moving through the leaves and fading again. Rowan looked at him and spoke softly, almost as if the words were meant only for the wind. "You can't force what is natural." Liam nodded gently, feeling the sentence move into his chest, like sunlight spreading through the canopy above. When the two of them walked away from the wide roots, the breeze continued to blow, carrying with it a strange, tender sense that the heaviest things in Liam's heart had finally softened just enough to be set down. And his heart, like the soil beneath the great tree, was slowly learning to absorb again. On a quiet morning, if you look long enough at a lotus just beginning to open, you'll notice it unfolds very differently from other flowers. It makes no sound, no sudden movement, no attempt to show itself off. It simply opens. Each petal separates from the next with a movement so gentle that if you're not paying attention, you might think it isn't moving at all. But it is exactly that stillness that lets the light rest on every layer of the flower, making it seem as if the lotus blooms through the silence of the sky itself. If you place your attention on your breath while looking at the lotus, you'll notice your breath behaves the same way. It doesn't need words to become deep. It doesn't need effort to become soft. The inhale arrives like a thin thread drifting into the space of your chest. The exhale fades out like a whisper no one can really hear. And in that quiet moment, you understand that stillness is not something you must create. It is something waiting to be recognized. The lotus never explains why it blooms. It doesn't teach with words, nor does it remind you of what you must let go of. It simply stands there, completely itself. And somehow, in its presence, you feel a little lighter. You sense the brightness of something that isn't trying to shine. The perfection of something that isn't trying to be perfect. Look closely and you'll see that the spaces between the petals are what make the lotus beautiful. That empty space holds nothing, yet it is precisely that nothingness that keeps the flower from feeling cramped. In the same way, the heart becomes bright, not by adding more explanations or more effort, but by releasing noise, releasing expectations, releasing the pressure to become someone you think you must be. In an even quiet breath, you may find that you are like the space between the lotus petals. Unstrained, unguided, not required to hold any shape at all. Just open, just here, just naturally bright. And when you let your mind fall into that stillness, like a lotus petal falling into light, you begin to see that sometimes saying nothing is a way of understanding more deeply. Trying nothing is a way of returning to yourself. Forcing nothing is a way for the heart to shine on its own. Let your breath cool and clear, like mountain air drifting down a high path. Soften your forehead, your eyes, your jaw. Let your shoulders drop, like snow settling on quiet ground. Arms, wrists, fingers, loosening. Chest, belly, opening like cold air, making space inside your lung. Hips, thighs, knees, feet, all falling into deep stillness. Now imagine a soft white glow sliding down the mountainside. Calm, slow, steady. It reaches you, touches your shoulders, your breath, and tells you you can rest now. Let that cool glow quiet the day inside you until your chest feels wide and your mind feels open like a high valley. Let your awareness rise, as if carried upward by thin mountain air, past the cliffs, past the quiet peaks, into the wide night sky. Stars like tiny sparks hanging in cool darkness. Everything widening. Everything fading into gentle height. Thank you for closing your day in this calm space. Let sleep come like night falling over the mountains. Soft, slow, certain. And if you want to return to this high quiet again, you can follow the Sleepy Zen channel so we can meet in this wide stillness each night. Sleep well. Sleep well.